last year, the legislature gave us 15.
Ready.
Okay.
5:35, and on February 7th, 2018, we'll reconvene the 2018-2019 budget hearings for the Milford Board of Finance. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for coming out on this lovely evening. For those of you who don't know, we do have a new member with us, Scott Moulton, here tonight, and I think everyone has been here more than once, so you know the drill. So unless any members of the board have any comments or statements that they would like to make to start off, we'll invite the Board of Education to present.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, I have to recuse myself from the conversation. My broker-dealer has 403B contracts in the school system, so their legal counsel said I couldn't participate in the conversation due to conflict of interest.
Potential.
Potential.
So in the abundance of caution, we'll note for the record that Mr. Walton is recusing himself from the deliberations and voting on the Board of Education portion of the budget.
But he will not be able to vote either?
Correct.
He could be in a discussion though?
If he's recusing himself, I would suggest that he not participate in the discussion.
Why don't we have our, the city attorney's office kind of do an opinion to find out.
Well, I think the problem is it may or may not be a conflict, but I think his internal legal department for his company has recommended the recusal. So,
it's our broker-dealer's counsel that made the request.
So it's probably...
No discussion?
They didn't really say,
okay.
Quite frankly.
Yeah, but generally speaking, if you're recusing yourself from the vote, you really shouldn't participate in the discussion, unfortunately. And you can check with the city attorney on that.
So basically it's going to be us three voting on the budget?
No.
I voted last year.
Oh, you did?
The first year, I thought I had to.
Boy, did she fight for the school budget too.
Oh, maybe not the first 2 years ago. Okay.
I remember we had that lovely tie.
Yeah, we had, we had a tie.
2 years ago.
Yeah, she recused herself and we had a tie.
Yes.
All right. Okay.
This year we'll,
all right.
I'll ask the city attorney's office to kind of communicate with your legal counsel for your company.
yeah, they could communicate.
Yeah.
But at this point, we'll know for the record that it's a recusal.
Today's discussion.
If anything changes, we'll take the appropriate steps. Okay, thank you.
Ready to go.
Okay, thank you very
The floor
much.
is yours.
So thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you for another year this evening regarding our proposed budget for the 2018-19 school year. I do have some opening remarks to make before turning the presentation over to administration. And I was going to introduce some board members, but I think the weather has scared them away. We do have 7 new board members this year. And I know some of them had planned to come, but I'm guessing that with the weather, and some of them are parents, they were home all day with their kids. Well, I thought they wanted to get out, but so this year's budget reflects a 1.786% increase over the current budget. This increase is slightly higher than what you've seen in recent years, in part because the enrollment decline is beginning to lessen, while contractual increases continue to rise. The board recognizes that the superintendent's proposal was developed with great sensitivity to our taxpayers and awareness of the financial challenges faced by the state. And I do want you to know that that concern carried over into our own budget deliberations. The board fully supports Dr. Fieser's funding requests, and after careful review during our budget workshops, we did unanimously adopt her budget with 2 changes. The first was recognizing that our buildings are old, with some showing its age more than others. We increased account 4304 for buildings projects by $361,500. This will allow each building principal's first and second priorities to be addressed, whereas the superintendent's proposed funding only allowed for the first priority to be addressed. Research shows a direct correlation between one's environment and one's productivity. And the board thinks it's important that we tackle more of these smaller projects on a yearly basis in an effort to better the learning environment in each school. The board also made a $4,000 increase to account 4201 student athletics. So the girls hockey players from Milford will pay the same fee to play on the Notre Dame Fairfield co-op team as the boys currently paid to play on the Milford co-op team. That's $200 per player. You-
I'm sorry to interrupt. Could- On the first proposed increase, that's account 4304?
4304 buildings.
And the amount of that again was?
We added, and it's reflected in the book, so we
Yeah.
added $361,000, $361,000, 361, comma, 500,
Okay,
361,500.
thank you.
You're welcome.
The next one, I'm sorry again, was?
8201,
8201.
and the board added $4,000 over what Dr. Fieser had recommended.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, what? No. So you may recall that several years ago, the board addressed and started to phase in a decrease in the pay-to-play fee for the boys' team. They were paying a substantially more money. So Dr. Fieser's funding request had suggested a similar phase-in, but the board felt since the amount needed to fully equalize the girls' and the boys' contribution was relatively small, we wanted to see it happen all at once. So this is why we added $4,000 this year. And then one last note, this budget does contain what would be our shared cost to add one additional school resource officer to the middle school coverage. We do ask for this position year after year because we continue to see it as an important role in our schools, and it is our hope that this will somehow be funded this year on the city side as well. So Dr. Fieser will address the remaining funding requests and the reductions found in this budget, but before I close, I want to reiterate the board's firm belief that our proposal reflects the needs of the school district as we move forward to sustain and strengthen the systems and programs that have been put in place in recent years with your support. It is our desire to provide for student learning that is engaging and relative to today's times, and to support our exceptional staff members with appropriate professional development opportunities in a positive working environment in order to foster the district's growth. We continue to see amazing initiative in what teachers and other staff members offer our students and what the students in turn produce. Milford is a desirable community on many levels. In my opinion, Mayor Blake has done a phenomenal job with infrastructure. I don't think the city's ever looked better, and folks are taking notice. So investment in our schools has the same effect, attracting young families who will be vested in our community. It is my hope that you share our commitment to place a high value on the education of our children, and I hope you will recognize the board's pledge to bring before you a budget that truly addresses our needs. And with that, I'll turn the presentation over to administration, who will share more details with you, and then we'd be glad to answer any questions you might have.
Now, you added the 40 for this SRO on top of Dr. Fieser's budget.
No, the 40 was I'm sorry, that was misleading what I said. The 40 was in Dr. Fieser's budget. We
Okay,
supported
so you
it.
did
So the
that.
only thing, no, we did not add anything to that. That was in her budget request.
Okay.
Just a notation that the board does fully support that expense. The only thing that the board added to her funding request was the $361,500 for the buildings projects and the $4,000 for the, to equalize the girls hockey players pay to play.
And if I could just clarify for 1 second, the $4,000 for the girls hockey,
Mhm.
that was actually not an addition,
We
because
did take
we
something,
offset
right,
the-
we did offset that.
we offset that in another account for tuition that we didn't need the $4,000 for. So that piece of it was a wash. The additional money that the board added was the $361,500 in the building projects.
Just a quick question on the SROs. 3305 Security Services account was increased by roughly 70,000, just under 70,000. 40,000 of that was attributable to the SRO position, and the rest was...
That's account 3305?
Yeah. Thank you.
So Dr. Fieser?
Thank you. I just have just a couple of preliminary remarks, and then we have a 2-page summary of our requests and the savings. I just want to just begin by saying, reiterating that we really were conscious when we developed the budget on two pieces. One, obviously, to do the best we could on behalf of students, student learning, et cetera, anything that has to do with students in the district. But we also were very, very cognizant of the dire state of the state with respect to its budget, and then also, you know, wanting to be responsible to our taxpayers. And the other thing that I would just simply say is that we are also really conscious of how incredibly supportive the city has been to us for the last, I can speak for the last 6 years. The city has just been enormously supportive to us, beginning with the Board of Finance, Board of Aldermen, the mayor, obviously, and it's, we believe it's really helped grow the quality of education in our schools, but also it's helped us sustain our buildings, and so our buildings are in remarkably good shape in light of, even though that they're dated in many ways, and we've been able to expand some programs, develop new programs, et cetera, all because of the support that we received from the city side. So we're really cognizant of that. So with that, we're going to hand out as we do always,
Thank you.
So this is a synthesis of the major budget requests that we are making in our budget, and then also where we have found savings. So I'm going to just move through these to give you a brief explanation of each, and then we can answer questions along the way. So we have 3 priorities in our budget: student learning, security and climate, and then facilities/other. The other is really girls hockey. So when we take a look at student learning, what we are asking for, we think, is pretty minimal. So we're asking for 1 full-time equivalent teacher to allow us to actually introduce world language in grade 6. Right now, world language in the middle schools begins in 7th grade. This would allow us to introduce it in 6th grade. The middle school is on what we call trimesters. So one trimester would be students taking French. Another trimester they would take Spanish. These would be introductory courses where kids would, learn some vocabulary. They would learn, some speaking skills, some writing skills, but really to kind of give them a taste of, studying a world language. Eventually, our goal would be to move the world language then down into the elementary, but this was a start to literally be able to have world language in all 3 grades of the middle school. So that's at a cost of $60,000 for that 1 teacher. We also want to move forward with a 3rd pathway in the high school, which is called a Civic Global Engagement Pathway. And in truth, this pathway was developed by the State Department of Education. They informed all districts in the fall that they had created this pathway, and it's really to give attention to global studies and to give attention to wanting to create global citizens. The pathway itself, those students that are taking it will, if they complete all the requirements, actually earn a certificate, a global engagement certificate from the State Department of Ed, and it'll go on their transcript. They're required to take 7 credits. 3 of those credits are world language credits, and the world language credits in the high school. So kids can take world language in the middle school for credit at the high school level. The state says you have to take 3 years in the high school. So students would at least either, if they're starting a brand new language, have 3 years of the language. If they're continuing from the middle school, they would have 4 years of the language. And then they have to take 3 other credits in courses that have a global theme to them. In addition, they have to engage in some kind of community service project in the community that has some kind of global piece to it. And then they also have to do a major project that is tied to, again, this global learning, global engagement. And if they do all of that, again, they earn their certificate, which is pretty significant because it's the only, well, there's a pathway in bilingual education, I believe, is the other pathway that the state is offering, but that's it. But that's going to be of no cost to us because we have the world languages in place and we have a number of courses that have global themes to them. So, and we have our teachers. So kids next year in 9th grade and some in 10th graders could even start to move forward and to earn this kind of thing.
Can I hold you right there?
Sure.
Now, not being in the education field, are these electives for these kids?
Some of them might be electives, but other, I mean, for example, if a student takes advanced placement U.S. history is required for graduation. So, although I don't know if U.S. history fits under that,
Oh, right.
that maybe not be, but say
World history.
Or AP geography or something. Although that's
There are
not-
courses in our sequence that apply to
Where do they
this.
come up with this thing?
State.
What's global about it? I mean, we've had geography, we've had world history.
Puts it all together and connects the dots so that the kids are following a sequence of courses and completing.
what does that do for
them? They get a certificate on their diploma.
What does
which
it do for them now?
it will
I'll get a
advance their-
certificate, but what does it do
Makes
for
them
them?
more desirable when they go to college and their jobs, I think.
It's on the transcript in college as well.
Fool me, okay.
I would think for some, although I do think that for some students who might want to study international international affairs or something, even if they wanted to go into international business or anything that had to do with beyond just the United States, this would be very attractive to colleges to look at students who would earn this kind of a certificate. Plus, I think it gives kids a wonderful experience if you're going to be doing some kind of community service that has some kind of a global bent to it. I mean, that could be something with the Red Cross in the sense that they are worldwide, but it could also be something as small as, I forget the name of it, Water for, it's Jane, she's a
Water for
German-
Africa.
Water for Africa, I mean, which is really a local organization, but has global implications.
Okay.
So.
Quick question, on world language, is that a specific language, or is that, I mean, how does that trend?
So we used to call them foreign languages,
Yes.
and that term's been changed now to
World, okay,
So for us right now, it's Latin, French, and Spanish.
okay.
Which one?
Latin, French, and Spanish.
And then, when you add one teacher, you already have teachers at the middle school level or the
We
grade 6
do.
level?
Seventh and eighth grade, we already have teachers, and we have teachers in the high school. But the
Right.
6th grade, it's, we would need the equivalent because we have 3 buildings that would
Right.
be, have to have courses developed. in those.
Okay. Well, that's what I'm trying to get at, the one teacher, how would the increase in one, well, that's one teacher, then you redistribute other positions to?
Yeah, is it just starting at the one school, is that?
No, it's not, I wouldn't think of it as one person, it's
It's
one
one-
FTE.
one
There might be
FTE.
parts that we add to other folks to increase their load.
Okay,
and
that's
then, so it spreads out. We're gonna have to reallocate staff. Most certifications are 7 through 12 for world language,
Right.
but they are allowed to teach into 6th grade, 1 year outside of their certification. So we're gonna take all of the staff throughout the district and cover this.
Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense, okay.
The additional load overall is a 1.0, but there might be fractions of that.
Understood.
So they get an extra pay, is that what you're saying?
No, it's
Was this
it's saying that we
$16?
need to allocate an additional 0.2, for example, to East Shore. And then we would work on how we would distribute that. It also depends upon enrollment in all the classes at the high school, et cetera.
But we don't anticipate that right now, I think the question is, with our
There
current
would not
staff,
be
can
any
we cover?
additional- Yeah.
Well, there is an additional 1.0.
There's an additional one
There's a
teacher
1.0
that'll be
that
spread
we're
out,
requesting.
fill the gaps.
What I was gonna say is, that, in other words, it wouldn't be an additional assignment for any teacher above and beyond their 1.0 assignment. I think is what you were asking.
But it's the equivalent of a full-time, a new full-time position and that would allow you to reallocate the existing staff to cover the 6th grade. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Third is curriculum writing, which we always have curriculum writing in, but we've added a significant amount of money for the summer curriculum writing, and that's because of 2 areas in which there are brand new standards. One is in science, which the state just adopted at what's called the Next Generation Science Standards, NGSS. And these new science standards require a major shift in the way in which science is taught in classrooms. And not only does it require a shift in what's being taught, but there's also going to be some shifting in even the course structure that occurs in science. And so there's just, I mean, it's a radical shift that's going to have to occur. So we have to rewrite a lot of the curriculum because of the new standards. They're exciting standards. They are not, kids will not be learning science the way most of us learn science, where we get a recipe for, you know, a lab in chemistry or biology and do A, B, C, D, E, and this is what you should get. More often than not, it might be, you know, here's what we're trying to get, figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have to figure out, you know, what chemicals or what might they have to do in order to achieve something, which is, again, radically different than the way kids are learning right now. So that's one, and the other is the National Social Studies standards have also been adopted by the state, which is requiring a shift as well in how social studies is taught. So those are the major pieces for curriculum. There's some other areas that are, you know, minor areas, but those are the two biggest. Do you want to add anything to that, Jeff?
I would just say that we've introduced a new curriculum writing cycle to ensure that we're aligning the major curriculum areas over a 5-year time span, so we're not doubling up on the major 5 core areas of world language, social studies, science, math, and what am I missing? ELA. So we're trying to spread those out, and we're going to tie budget to those cycles. So if you're up next year, then you would be tied for both instructional supplies, textbooks, any kind of other materials, as well as curriculum writing. So we're not just sort of going at this one course at a time, which is what we've been doing in the past. We really are going to do major curricular areas, and this is the first year we're instituting that for next fiscal year. So this is the first time we're tying those changes into this budget. So there is an increase to ensure that we're meeting the needs of our students and we're meeting the needs of any curricular revisions that we have.
Who's instructing them on this curriculum writing? Is it an outside source? Or
No,
is it the individuals themselves? I mean, you're saying you got new science requirements and new, where is this coming from though? The individual teachers would have this, or do they? No.
Not personnel increase, so.
No, so we have instructional supervisors in the district that have the major content areas, and their job is to stay current with all the changes in any of their content areas. Ms. LaSala, who spoke about the planetarium, she's in charge of science. But also remind you that our principals are curriculum leaders as well. They need to stay in current. The state has also done a fantastic job of offering up a number of different professional development, workshops, etc., because it is a significant shift. It's going to take time, and we're in year 1 of that process. It's probably going to take 2 or 3 years. But we do have part of my role is to lead that work, and then I work with instructional supervisors to ensure that we have a systemic and systematic process to roll these changes out, to ensure that our teachers are supported throughout the process.
So, how's the 75,000 being spent, I guess, is what we need, we're
Most
asking.
of the time, the teachers will come in over the summer,
Mm-hmm.
and the teachers write the curriculum. So
Right, so
they,
the teachers write the curriculum, they come in the summer,
It's a group
and they
of
have to be
teachers.
paid for that. So it is extra personnel cost.
yes.
Correct.
It's a salary item.
It's a salary.
It's a salary item.
Correct.
Okay. So that's how it's being, okay.
Correct.
I just would add one other thing, is the state is also changing its standardized test tied to science. For years, there was a Connecticut Mastery Test Science in grades 5 and 8, and also grade 10 was the academic performance test in science. That's all been thrown out, and this year the state will be piloting in the spring a new science test in grade 11, not grade 10, and then they're also going to have a test in grade 5 and grade 8, and then a year from now, the new test will be fully implemented, and it's all tied to these new standards. So it's
I think it's important just to point out too, that in Milford, our staff write our curriculum. They know our kids best, they know the school system best, rather than purchasing a canned curriculum. In many areas, they write it themselves. That all the teachers in the district will follow the curriculum that they put together.
Okay. Now, when you make this curriculum up, does the state have to approve it?
No.
You just do it yourself and assuming that the state would approve it?
We base them on the standards to make sure that we're aligned to those standards, and then we're accountable to the state through the assessment that Dr. Fieser just described.
Mm-hmm.
So there is an alignment to a state expectation.
Is STEM under this situation here too? STEM?
STEM overlaps many areas, but there are many elements that, in particular, the new standards are asking for more engineering aspects to be incorporated into our courses, and so that is something important. But then, of course, you have the technology aspects and the mathematics that we are looking for more and more ways to overlap those areas so they're not working in isolation. But again, that's a long-range plan.
Mm-hmm. Now, will this be an ongoing thing every year, curriculum writing?
Yes, it's a 5-year cycle.
But that's right, you did say.
But it may not be this much money each year. It depends on who's on the cycle. Again, much of this is being driven because of these new standards.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of context, though, for the past 2 years, we made significant reductions to this line because we were working on creating this plan. So now that the plan's implemented, we're going back up to a previous level, actually still less than 3 to 4 budget cycles ago. We're still below that level that was sustained. But I believe now it's a much more logical approach to curriculum writing.
Okay.
And the last piece that we're asking for under student learning, was there another question?
No.
Oh,
No, thank
okay.
you.
Is the restructuring of our enrichment program at the elementary level. So in our elementary schools, we have what is called an enrichment program for 4th and 5th graders that are identified as meeting a standard for giftedness. And the program had been being offered in each school at the grade level, but when we reconfigured to back to K-5 schools, there's just so few kids in each school because we now have 4th and 5th graders across 8 schools instead of having them across 4 schools. And after having done this now for 2 years, what we're feeling is we would like to bring kids together into a central site because we would have more students then. There would be, like all the 5th graders coming together, kids would learn so much more from one another because they, instead of being with maybe 2, 3, 4 kids, they might be with 20, 25 kids from across all of the schools. So this line item is literally for transportation. It's to be able to pick kids up, say the 5th graders, 1 day a week from their school and bring them to a central site and then return them. And the same way with the 4th grade.
In 4th grade too?
4th and 5th grade, right.
Separate.
Separate.
Why not one bus for 4th and 5th grade?
They go on different days of the week.
Why not make 1 day a week? Just less buses.
I think it's one, is it one bus, Mr. Rich, Tony? It's 22,000?
It is.
It's one bus. It's 2 buses.
It's one bus to take all the kids on 2 different days. That's what the total cost
Yeah,
would
but the
be.
bus is running 2 days a week right now.
I believe so.
Okay, now
That's
when
the
you
way-
take the kid out of the school, what time do you take them out?
Well, in the elementary schools, they begin at 8:25, if my memory serves me correctly. So kids would be picked up before 9 o'clock.
And then for the whole day gone?
Probably till about 1:30, 2 o'clock, and then they would be returned to their schools.
So they lose a whole day of learning just to learn this one thing?
Well, they're doing it now anyway.
They're doing it now,
They're just
right.
doing it
The whole day?
in their building.
1 day a week, the students are in this enrichment program.
For 5 kids and doing this the whole day?
Well, remember, I mean, we didn't increase the number of teachers when we went to the, when we reconfigured with respect to the, but what we did was, the teachers are now, instead of, you had, I believe, 2 teachers in 4 buildings, we had 2 teachers in 8 buildings. So, that's just been really difficult for them because they're going from building to building, and the thought was, bring all the kids together, which my understanding is that was the model a number of years ago, prior to the first reconfiguration. It was always at a central location.
It after middle school.
Mm.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
So those were our student learning requests under security and climate. We have two requests. One is our school resource officer, and you've heard us speak about that before. We would really like this position for the middle school, which would enable us to have an SRO at each of the middle schools and both high schools. Right now, there are two school resource officers that are assigned to the 3 middle schools. And then the other piece is for security enhancements. Again, the city has been tremendously supportive of the schools with respect to installing all kinds of security in the schools, and then also enabling us to enhance some of what we had in place. But what happens with the security pieces is that each year, you know, there's software that has to be updated, there's repairs that have to be done, there may be new pieces that have to be purchased, etc. So really, this $27,000 is primarily for upgrades for security across the 14 schools. Maybe you want to add to that?
Sure. Well, just as a little bit of background, as Dr. Fieser said, the city has been tremendous. There's been bond authorizations that this board has approved and the Board of Aldermen has approved through the recommendations of the mayor. And what that's allowed us to do is to apply for state grants for security, where we got back 46% of the money that the city put out for it. So over the last 5 years, we've spent about approximately $3.5 million, and that came from state grant, came from city bond authorizations, and it came from some from the general operating budget of the board. But tremendous, you know, since Sandy Hook, there's been a tremendous emphasis put on security in the schools. Our systems were outstanding to begin with, but we've enhanced those with new, up-to-date equipment in all of our schools. As Dr. Fieser says, it costs money. The amount of security infrastructure that we have in our schools now is tremendous, and it costs money to maintain that. And this additional $27,000 specifically can be tied to, we increased the number of quick link buttons in our schools, and those are basically a panic alarm. Before we had one in each of the buildings, it was in the main office, and now they're scattered throughout the building. So those quick link buttons, we also have to monitor them. So there's a certain amount of money that's paid for, or that's in this budget for monitoring of those quick link buttons. And in addition, we hope to be able to buy a software that will be able to enhance our ability to detect threats through social media before they become an issue at the schools. We don't want to talk about that too much in public, but it's another tool that technology will allow us to be able to, hopefully if there are, God forbid, any threats that you know, any words that come through on social media that are detected in and around the Milford area, we'll be able to intercept those beforehand. This is a recommendation of the police department and the state security standards, so we're hoping to buy that software also. And that cost is about $16,000. The initial cost will not be a much smaller amount to maintain it each year.
Who monitors this, Jim?
That's our alarm company,
We
Omni
have
Data.
Omni Data, the contract goes through Omni Data, and they have a monitoring company that monitors all the points of the alarm system, access, quick link,
Oh, it's part of the contract?
part of a contract.
It's part of the contract, but why do we need even this additional money?
There's additional buttons. We greatly increased the number of buttons throughout the district, which requires additional monitoring costs. So,
Now, is this going to be annual?
it will be.
Why isn't it under the contract if it's going to be annual?
Well, it will be, but it'll be added to the contract.
These will be added to the devices, and added to the system, as long as they don't add any more quick link buttons to add the for that contract, it will not reoccur as far as another additional expense next year will be covered in the budget.
Why, we wouldn't need a line item for it, would you?
There already is, we already pay Omni Data, but this is additional work for additional buttons. And so the budget is increasing for that particular contract for this year.
Right.
What Pat's saying is going forward, there won't be additional costs, but this cost will be added to the contract.
But that's what I'm saying, we're gonna see this next year, as a 3305 for $27,000.
Not as an
No.
increase.
No, not as an increase, and again, it's not all attributable to the quick links. There's also this additional software that we're looking at.
Okay.
So that's security and climate, and then our last area is in facilities, and then, as I said, other, the girls' hockey. So West Shore Middle School, as you all know, is being renovated, and if you haven't been in it recently, you ought to take a look, because it is wonderful. The library is, people are drooling over the library. I know, I'm sure you've been in it. It's magnificent. So it's increasing over 9,000 square feet. So we are requesting a .5 custodian. The same thing was done at East Shore Middle School when East Shore had its renovation and increased nearly the same amount of square foot, and a .5 custodian was added.
How does that work? It's coming part-time?
We have a part-time person there now, and we'll increase that to a full-time position.
It's part-time now, and they'll make it full-time?
Correct.
When do they work, at night?
We have I have two shifts. One shift is 7 to 3:30, and the second shift is 2 to 10:30.
So do we have 2 people?
I will have 3 people on there at night from 2 to 10:30.
Right now, there's 2.5 at night.
Right now, there's 2.5.
The next piece, I'm going to say my understanding of what this is, and then if you have further questions, Pat Bradbury will be more than happy. But this is a costly item, but it's an inventory management system. So the way I tried to explain it to the parent, PTA presidents, when I met with them about the budget, we were sitting in a classroom, and I said, I want you to look around the classroom and look at all the assets that are in this classroom. We happen to be in one of the libraries, so, besides all the books, the tables, the chairs, there was an air conditioner in one of the windows, the lights, the ceiling tiles, whatever, computers. And so I said, all those are assets of the school system, let alone any kind of, the heating system, the air filtration system. All of that are assets, and we don't have a system in place, a mechanism in place to inventory any of that, to categorize it, to inventory it, to allow us to then put ourselves on a regular kind of maintenance system of where it would come up, all the boilers, okay, we have how many boilers are in this school system, which ones are coming up over the next 3 years that are going to have to be replaced, or the next 5 years that are going to have to be replaced. And so not that they don't know that, they know it because they're on top of it all the time, but when we're talking about the entire school system, oftentimes what's happening is something breaks and we're fixing it, and it's unexpected kind of thing. This would allow systematizing every asset in the school system, which would allow much, much more careful monitoring of it. It would also allow us to create a replacement cycle, like we raised with Pat probably 3 or 4 years ago, Pat. I remember talking with him about classroom furniture and saying, do we have any kind of cycle for replacing, like all 4th grade desks are going to be replaced this year, or 4 elementary schools, every piece of furniture in their classrooms are going to be replaced. Well, we don't have any cycle like that. So it's, as things start to break, or this is really all we need to get, this is how we're doing it. This kind of a system would allow us, again, to do it in I think, a systematic way, and a much more, I think, efficient way, and may very well down the road, although we can't actually predict, help us in cost savings because we're on top of things more than we would be now. It's yours.
So So what this equipment will help me with, or it's really an inventory. In my heating and ventilating systems alone, I have close to $10 million worth of equipment between chillers, boilers, unit ventilators, rooftop units, air handlers that are buried in the building. And that's just one piece of it. It'll drill down to the fire alarm systems, the plumbing systems, all the pumps that go along with that, ceiling systems, door systems, entryway systems, cowl wall. It'll give us a time frame and a forecasting tool to at least to be able to lay out when these expenditures are going to come up in the 20-year cycle. And what will happen is we can move some of that around. Are we going to get it all replaced on a 20-year cycle? No, but at least we know it's coming, and we can at least move the large areas, the large volume. The boilers alone could be a $4 million project. At least we can move that around to a better fiscal time that the city can absorb this. And plus is to categorize it all, because we know where it all is. When we have staff turnover, we need a system to at least get this laid out so future administration will at least know what's up and coming throughout the district. District wide.
If I could just point out, the major piece of the $77,000 for the cost is for this year for a company to come in and inventory it all, do a current status, a condition status of all of the equipment. So we'll know. I often say, if you need directions, you have to know where you are before you know how you're going to get there. And that's what this will allow us to do. A company will come in that's an expert in this and look at every single piece of equipment, every system that we have in the district. Not only inventory, but take a condition of it, an age of it, so that this will be in one database that then we'll be able to maintain for years to come. So the initial cost is the vast majority of it. Do you know, Pat, exactly how much the 1 year cost will be just for the data collection?
Really consulting.
Correct.
Yes.
The first piece is to get
software that's costing.
Correct.
Consulting is costing a lot of money.
Correct.
Peter, does the city have a list of its assets?
We do.
Anything over $5,000.
Okay.
Anything over 5,000 is capital.
And they don't have a listing of their assets?
But if I can clarify, the big difference is that there's a list, but there's no conditions attached to that list.
I realize that.
And that's the important
You
piece
have
for
the
us.
list, right? You have software that gives you a list of your assets.
We know what we have, but we need to see the total condition.
So this
and
is
then
really a
categorize.
consulting contract to have somebody come in and evaluate all the assets.
Yes,
That's
and then
what
put
it
it
is.
put it into one system that we can then maintain for the decades to
Okay,
come.
are you buying new software?
I don't believe-
Hopefully, our vision is we're going to tie it into the solution I already have that we're working with our PM.
Okay, so you're keeping the same
We're
software?
keeping the same software, it'll tie it into a PM program that will all
So
generate
you
together.
just want to have an add-on?
We want to have this capital forecasting tool that will
Right.
push out where we are, and
Right.
will also tie into our preventive maintenance program to get ahead of some of the things that we're already doing.
Does that update exist?
Excuse me?
That add-on, does it exist?
Yes, absolutely.
It exists for your
Yes.
software, and you're going to
Absolutely.
have the consultant come in and add it on?
Right.
Okay. So you have the software right now, you have a list. If you
I-
hadn't come up with a list, you have a list of your assets.
We have a list of what assets we have.
Okay.
What we're trying to do is get a facility condition assessment, to
Right.
make sure we have all the
Right.
proper times in there.
So really, it's a consulting contract to evaluate your assets and do a couple of add-ons. Okay, give you a better handle on what's there and what condition it's in.
Correct.
Correct.
Peter, does the city have this?
I'm not aware of one that's global, but I would imagine the departments have.
Within each department, for example, every piece of equipment that Public Works has, for example, the garage foreman, monitors it. Each vehicle, for example, has a different preventive maintenance schedule. And that is categorized within his system, but I think they're looking at a more global system. Ours are more broken down department by department.
It's not only maintenance, it's also control. You don't want stuff walking.
And one
So
thing,
in our purchasing agent obviously categorizes everything that comes into the city.
Okay.
And then there's a separate accounting that he has to keep for assets over 5,000.
One thing the board recognized in discussion of this item was that as we get a better handle on the condition of things, we know that, you know, if a boiler breaks and you go out and have to buy one boiler, you pay, you know, X amount of money for it. If you know that the life expectancy of 4 boilers or 5 boilers is coming up and you purchase 5 of them, you're going to pay less per boiler. So purchasing a group of them together and being a little proactive will save us money in the long run versus waiting until it breaks and having to just buy one. So that was a big part of our discussion.
Now, you were talking about the schools, you know, each school knows exactly how many computers they have in it. You have an inventory of each school. Each classroom, you know how many desks you got in each classroom. If a teacher has a problem with the desk, doesn't the teacher just tell the principal we need a new desk? Why would we keep replacing a whole schmear full of desks? I don't understand that rationale, I really don't. I don't think that's cost effective.
So here's an example. When we went to reconfigure 2 years ago, what happened is that, so we had kindergarten classrooms in 4 schools. Well, now we're going to have kindergarten classrooms in 8 schools. And the furniture differs in a kindergarten classroom than it does, say, in a 2nd grade classroom. They have, what do I call them, are they mushroom tables? Anyways, that, you know. So then you're sort of looking at it saying, okay, we don't have enough furniture to create these 8 classrooms. And then the question becomes, you know, a teacher may say, well, I'd like a different kind of desk. And frequently what happens is a principal has the money in her budget, his budget, and purchases then maybe a different kind of furniture. And that's the piece where you start to say, whoa, time out. There's got to be, you know, we've got to define very clearly, kindergarten classrooms, this is the furniture that belongs here. You know, no, you can't have whatever, you know, 10 rubber balls for kids to sit on. You know, or you can't have whatever it may be. And that's, I mean, that's just kind of like one small example, which is what prompted the question, do we have a definition of what's a kindergarten classroom versus a 1st grade, versus a 5th grade, etc. And then also looking to see, do we look to see, you know, are we replacing, again, furniture, knowing that, you know, after 20 years, maybe the desks are ready to be replaced. Are we doing it that way? And we have not really been doing it, again, systematically in that fashion. I don't want to say it's hit or miss, but it'd be make much more sense to be able to say, you know what, these desks have been in these, you know, in this school for the last 20-some years. They're due for new desks, for example.
It's really similar to replacing a fleet of vehicles. You don't want to do the whole fleet at the same time, but we'd like to have a plan in place that we can at least gradually get through the entire district on a replacement plan for all the large ticketed items. And I mean, we have furniture left over that's 40 years old that we're still kicking around in these schools. And the one thing we noticed with the redistricting, we had some classrooms that had half a trailer that went, some had 3/4 of a trailer that went, some had a full trailer of stuff that we were moving from class. So we really want to get that down to it's all the same, it's all categorized, and every 1st grade is getting the same, kindergarten is getting the same right through the district, but the fleet has to be turned over.
Do you tag your assets?
We tag, I tag all the equipment on the capital side, meaning all my split systems, boilers, all that stuff is tagged. We do tag a lot of the equipment that has tags on it now.
How about you, Peter, on the city side?
Yes, every single thing comes through purchasing this tab, with the asset tags.
Everything that's not disposable, even like a stapler, has a asset number.
Wow.
We can't say that. To be honest with you. I'm thinking of my stapler. I don't have a tag on my stapler.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then the building projects, which the original money that was put into the budget allows for, we ask our principals to submit 3 items, is it? 5 items?
Yes, we try and get a 1 through 10 list, really, from the principals.
So every principal submits what are the priorities for their building projects? The reality is, they get one completed. Their number one project is really what, in essence, gets completed. And so our board, when they learned that what we had put into the budget was going to cover the single item across all 14 schools, asked what would it cost to take the number 2 item from every one of the schools and complete those projects. And that's where the $361,000 came in that was added to the budget and building projects. It's for the number 2 item for each of the buildings. Anything you need to add to that?
No.
Okay.
How crucial is number 2?
Pardon me?
How crucial is the number 2 projects?
They're pretty,
Yeah, they're.
may want to read a few of them?
I could read a few. Our total list, what we try and do is when I go through the budget process with the principals, I ask them to give me 10 items. We itemize 10 items. That list is all needed items. It's not really wish list items. It's stuff that's either breaking down or we want to get replaced. That list is about $3 million, just from the 10 items from there. So that's why we put the 1 in. But at Foreign, we have 2 items in there. Number one is to replace another section of fire smoke heads throughout the building. And the second is to refinish the gym floor and game lines. East Shore Middle School, the 1s and 2s. The 1 is classroom floor and ceiling abatement. We have still some floor tile that needs to be removed and replaced. And we're going to replace the ceiling tiles that are original in those parts of the building. And the second one is classroom lockers. You know, where they're original lockers from when it was converted to a middle school. They're worn, you can't get parts for them, so I do a replacement on those also. But those are some of the items that could be in there.
So the number 2s add up to the 379?
Correct.
361. So the difference between the 379 and the 361 was what Dr. Fieser had funded it, the additional money that had been in the Dr. Fieser's funding request.
So it was $18,000
Over what was spent last year.
over what was spent last year, right? Okay, and then you guys added
361, 500.
Okay, and 361 is the number 2,
So just the number 2s.
right?
The original item in the budget was $294,000. And then if you add the 361,500, it comes out to 655,500.
294 was the number 1.
Correct.
Okay. And so like the gym floor, the lockers, those are, I can pick out all the number 2s.
Right. So lockers were number 2 at East Shore. Gym floor was number 2 at Foreign High School.
There's actually a list of all of the items. It's Appendix I.
And I know it's there, but.
Yeah, and that'll show you the number 1 and the number 2 for each school. Page 821 in the back.
Thank you.
And the last piece is the girls' hockey. So Mrs. Lance spoke to that a little bit. Bottom line is that Notre Dame Fairfield charges $1,500 per hockey player that comes in from outside. And our girls were paying 900 of that versus the boys paying 200. So we had submitted initially in the budget that I submitted, a $4,000 increase, and the board asked us to increase it further to bring it down to where the players would only have to pay $200. So $4,800 more was added.
The opposite.
$4,200 was added to it to bring it to $8,800 to equalize the girls' hockey.
48 was in first, and we added 4,000.
And the cost breakdown, Notre Dame charges each girl $1,500. And so what the board is doing here is adding, next year the roster, or right now the roster is at 10 girls. Originally when the board deliberated it was 9, and they added 1 girl since then. So there's 10 girls. It'll be funded at $1,300 per girl, which will then allow then will leave $200 per athlete for their family to fund, just like the boys do. So it's a total item of $13,000. It's $8,800 over last year's budget.
Jim, I'm looking at all the projects. How do I know what's number one and number two? Going back to that. I mean, I'm looking at, I know you have a list of all the projects, but can you just let me know what number one and number two?
The first one listed would be number one, second one listed number two.
Okay,
For each school.
for each school. So for each school, the first one's number one, the second one's number two. Okay. Thanks.
So with that, the request came to $710,503. And we sought savings. When we brought forth the original proposed budget, when I brought it forward, actually the savings that we had found were, it was in excess of what we were requesting, but the additional, particularly the additional funding that went to the building projects brought the requests higher than the savings that we had found. But even so, we feel good about the savings that we found. One was we're going to reduce 3 teaching positions. That's significantly less than what we have been doing in the past. But our projections next year is that overall in the district that we're going to be down 80 students. That's far fewer students than it has been in previous years. But so that's $180,000 from in staff reductions. In utilities, it's $71,000 because of having to pay less for electricity, natural gas, and we're also actually will find some savings in fuel oil. We have 3 buildings that actually we have fuel oil as well as gas, so we can draw on the tanks which already have fuel in them and use those. It's already been paid for, so that's a savings there. Transportation, we're able to save $78,000, and there's 4 reasons for that. One of them is that Judy Mesogelitis in Jim's office is dogged at consolidating bus routes, and every year finds ways to just, pull more routes together into one versus 3, for example. We also, I missed that.
No.
Okay, all right.
I did too, I'm glad.
Oh, okay. We also changed this year, we were able to bring all of the elementary schools to starting and ending at the same time. For years and years, 4 schools started at one time and 4 schools started at another because we didn't have enough buses. So this is the very first year we've been able to do this. But we needed to add some time because there were always 30 minutes in between the runs, high school to middle school to elementary, and then the 2 elementaries. So we added 10 minutes. That 10 minutes actually allowed us then to pick up more kids on a bus run, which resulted in savings. So that was the second reason. The third thing is that in the past we usually had to have 2 buses to take kids to Bridgeport Aqua, the aquaculture school in Bridgeport. That's the half-day program. We only need 1 bus for next year. And then the last is that there's some decrease in gasoline that we will have to pay for the buses for transportation for next year. So all of that yields $78,000 plus in savings. In other support, we have insurance, we have posting, advertising, telecommunications, and also what's not listed here is a decrease in property liability insurance. So that's nearly $100,000 that's being saved in that account. Educational supplies. This year we are actually adopting fewer texts this year. And also we have a need for fewer textbooks and also library books. And you may wonder, well, why? It's not that we don't place a value on library books, but we're purchasing a lot more software, and for use in the libraries and different other kinds of means for kids to do research, et cetera, than just simply books. And then the last piece is that this year we had a one-time cost in our budget for the foreign accreditation process. Just to refresh your memories, the New England Association of Schools and Colleges comes in every 10 years. It's a visiting committee of about 17 people. We have to put them up Sunday through Wednesday, feed them, etc., and that's a $25,000 cost. So that we paid, and that their visit has occurred. They haven't received their report back yet, but that money's been removed. And then the last is in equipment, where we saved a little over $100,000 in equipment, furniture, computers. So the total savings is, that we've, major savings is $596,649. So if you turn to the second page, you see the summary, which is the 2017-18 budget was at $91,954,000. The 2018-2019 proposed budget is $93,596,655. And you see the difference there is $1,006,000. It's a 1.786% increase. And then we showed historic, so while we rose in our request this year, you can see that really we have really sought to come in at low increases over the last several years. And this year, again, one of the reasons why it rose some is we just didn't have the economy of scale where we were able to reduce staffing the way we have been able in the past.
Thank you very much for that
I have some
presentation.
questions, yeah.
Would you like
Okay.
to ask some general questions now, or would you prefer to go through the budget? Open to either approach.
General
Good.
questions?
Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
Let's go for one.
Jim, what are the salaries, that seems to be the major increase, what's that due to?
The overall, our increased salaries with all of our unions runs between 2% up to 3.3%. So the increase, the actual increase is a difference of 1.941, and that's due to primarily there's a little bit less staff. There's additional turnover savings. New people coming in cost less than the people that are, for the generally that are going out. And so we're able to offset the increases of 2% to 3.3%, and we're just under a total increase of about 2%.
And that's on Roman numeral page 7?
Correct. That's Roman numeral page
Are you looking
8.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
And then it's extrapolated on the Roman numeral 8 is the major objects, and then,
Right.
and then it's further broken down by salary accounts. So you can see, administrators went up 2.44%. I won't go through each one, but you can see the increases overall for the different groups. And that total salary line is also impacted by all those items in the non-certified staff, which is in 1120 through 1129. Account numbers on page Roman numeral 9.
So can you tell me which ones were mandated and which ones weren't?
When you say mandated union contracts?
Union contract.
Sure. So when you say mandated, you mean base salary. You're not talking about,
Yeah.
because things like okay, well, let's just go down the list. 1110 administrators is union contract. Teachers, all of the 1111 categories are mandated by contract. 1112 is a specialized program, but that's salaries. That's not, that would not be base salary tied to a contract, nor would summer school substitute teachers, curriculum work, coaches and advisors is in the contract, so they're listed, and those are for the most part teachers. In non-certified salary areas, secretarial is, non-certified supervisors are not, they do not have a union contract. Obviously they're non-certified, but they're the supervisors. They're people like myself, Pat Bradbury, our business office manager, the food service director, people like that. Secretarial is a union contract, maintenance and custodians is union contract. Hourly aides is not. Those are non-certified, but they're essential. I would consider the greeters, the paraprofessional subs, the detention monitors, things like that. Although they don't have a union contract, they're part of the day-to-day operation of the school system.
So those are just raises.
Those are raises.
Those are raises that, are not part of a contract.
Correct. And I believe that the board approved 2.25% for an increase. I could be wrong about that.
I have to go look.
Yeah, I'd have to look. Yep.
Back in December.
Media aides are in the union, paraprofessionals are a union, cafeteria aides are not. Those are, as opposed to the food service workers who work in the kitchen, cafeteria aides are at the elementary school and the middle school, and they're just part of the assistance and the supervision that's needed in the cafeteria during lunch waves. Overtime obviously is not. Clerical part-time, not tied to a contract. And then the non-certified assistants, those are occupational therapists, physical therapists, behaviorists, not in a contract, but certainly required in the district. They're essential.
Do they actually work for the Board of Ed, or is that?
They do.
They do?
Yes.
Okay, are we hiring some more people there?
Yeah, behaviorist.
Yes, the behaviorist. I can explain that. And Carol Swift, our Director of People Personnel, is also may be able to help here. The behaviorists used to be in two different lines. One was teachers, because they were previous to now, they were certified teachers and certified behaviorists. And Carol, jump in if I'm incorrect here. But what we found was it was very difficult, if not impossible, to find a certified teacher who also had behaviorist certification for the amount of money that we were paying a certified teacher. And so what we found was we weren't able to hire, and so we went to an outside agency, a contracted service, because behaviors are necessary. And so there's a shift. There's a behaviorist position that's coming out of the teachers under 1111 special education, and going down to the non-certified area, the same as the occupational and physical therapists. Correct. So we're not adding positions. We're shifting where they're being paid from and where their certifications are. Carol, can you elaborate?
No, you captured that accurately. The bottom line is behaviorists are paid a lot more than teachers. And so while we can have interviewed and tried to hire behaviorists at teachers' salaries, they say no thank you. And so we haven't been able to fill the position, and that's why we have to move it out of the teacher contract. And we're working on that right now.
How many positions, the 154,000, how many positions is that?
Two.
Two positions?
And we believe that may be on the low end of what we can get a behaviorist for, but that's what we budgeted for at this
How old is that position? Title, behaviorist.
how long have we had behaviorists in the district?
Mhm.
I,
I'm gonna say about maybe 6 years.
Yeah, I thought so.
And we have three, right?
we have
There are
three.
three positions that we want to fill.
Who created that? State?
The state did, and I know UConn began a program for certification for behaviorists. I think they were the first college in the state to actually start to offer a certification program. The difficulty is that they get a certification as a behaviorist, but not necessarily as a teacher. But meanwhile, there's such a shortage of the behaviorists that anyone who even has the teaching certification, they can turn around and make $20,000, $30,000 more just by not being a teacher and being a straight behaviorist someplace else. So that's what we were coming up against, where we simply could not find them. And these are people who are really very, very specialized in their training. And Carol, maybe you want to talk a little bit about the kind of children that they work with?
Sure, so we use our behaviorists to work with kids who have significant acting out behavior or behavior where they shut down and won't participate in their learning. And they will come in and work with school teams and work with the child and create a whole behavior plan and an instructional plan around developing coping skills and so on and so forth to get the child to attend to school or behave well enough to begin with kids learning along with them. And without this position, what typically happens to kids who present in that manner is we struggle to educate them in district, and oftentimes we'll end up placing them in an out-of-district placement because of their behavior. If we have behaviorists and can teach the kids how to do what's expected in district, we keep our kids home, which is always the #1 priority. And then, you know, cost is secondary to that, but it's still a very real factor.
Do you have figures of how many children we're dealing with here?
For their caseloads?
For the caseload for the behaviorists?
Yes. We have, I would say each behaviorist probably has between 30 to 40 kids on their caseload.
We have 2 behaviorists?
We have 3.
3?
We're adding 2 here.
Huh?
We're adding 2 here.
We're adding 2 here, okay, so we've got 3 behaviorists.
It's more of a shifting.
It's a shifting.
We've had 3 all along, so
Yeah.
it's just the shifting of the cost. We're not adding more
So
positions.
there still will be one behaviorist position in the teacher's salary account, and then 2 of those positions are being moved to this account. So
Okay.
no new positions, but just the shifting of where they're paid for.
So they're dealing with how many children, you said?
They probably have caseloads around 30, I would say, is a safe bet. And higher.
So 90 total, 90 students.
A lot of our program students, so students in our autism programs, students in our programs for students with emotional disturbance. And then we have one that focuses primarily on K-1-2, trying to get in there and supporting the kids.
Okay, so the
Very early on.
autistic children are in this group then?
Not all, but some.
Not all, some.
Some.
How many autistic children do you think we have in the school, roughly?
I don't know that number.
We don't
I
have
can
that
get it to you. I do, I can run
But the behaviorists
Work
would
for you.
work with the autistic children as well.
yes.
Most of the children, now most of these 90 children, are they autistic or no? No.
Not, probably about a third of them.
Third,
Is probably
okay.
safe to say.
Now, we have the classrooms for the autistic children, right?
Mhm.
So the behaviorist works with the teacher, obviously, in the room.
The teacher, the social worker, the school site.
In the classroom itself, environment?
And paraprofessionals, yes,
In the classroom environment, okay.
yep. And travels from building to building. There isn't a behaviorist in a single building. They go around to the different programs, to the different students.
Okay, psychologists are not involved in this program at all, right? With the autistic children?
Sure they are,
They are?
sure.
Are they in the classroom as well?
They go in, they do social skills instruction, psychologists do, yeah.
So the average autistic classroom, how many children do you think we have in there?
It varies, because we have different types of programs.
Right.
So some of our programs might have 6 children in there,
Mm-hmm.
some have 18.
That many?
The high school level, we have 18 kids in
Oh,
one of our
right.
programs.
But at the lower level, it's usually 6 to 8, 10.
In high school, you know how fluid the schedule is, so it's not
Right.
like they're sitting
Right.
in a particular room, all 18 children all the time.
That's amazing, only 3 behaviors for all those kids. But we do have a lot of special ed teachers, though.
Yes.
How many special ed teachers do we deal with? You know, I saw it somewhere in here, offhand.
That's on Roman numeral 15.
Jim, I flunked.
So the answer is 67.5.
I'm sorry.
67.5.
Wow.
Well, that's, I have a question on that number, because on page 2, where you actually have the special education teachers set up in the 111 account, that does show that reduction from 69.5 to 67.5. And then I see a corresponding increase on page 7 for the 2 behaviors that we've been discussing.
Correct.
But I don't see the actual amount in 111 for special ed teachers, even though there's a decrease of 2 FTE positions. There's no corresponding decrease in the salary line item in that account?
Correct, and that is, you have to imagine that every time a new teacher comes in, they come in at a different salary.
Right.
A different salary. On the pay scale, there's 13 classes in the teacher salary. So depending, what you see there is actual teachers that we have and where they will be on the following year's scale. So you can't always say that there's going to be an exact dollar amount corresponding to a change from one category to another.
Well, I understand that, the salary's going to increase, but for instance, in the adopted budget, and maybe this, for last year, there was a reduction of 3 positions, and we showed a corresponding salary reduction of roughly, exactly 180,000. Is there a reason why a similar change wasn't shown in this particular budget?
If I may, if you look at that actual number from 2017-18, it's not exactly $180,000 because there's an offset to the salary contracted increases. So you can imagine from the current fiscal year to next fiscal year, there's a contractual increase for all of these folks.
Understood.
So the reduction of 2 teachers would offset most of that cost.
Together.
Right, well, I understand the offset from the increase in salaries for the remaining teachers, but wouldn't there be a corresponding decrease just shown for the fewer positions?
There's nothing listed, is what you're saying, there's 2
Yeah.
hash marks. Okay,
Yes.
yeah, I see what you're saying.
If you look, you're looking at the
I'm looking on page 2 under the special education.
Correct.
Teacher.
If you look at Roman numeral 15, that's the staffing analysis. And here you can see in teachers, the regular ed teachers were reducing a net of 2 teachers. As Mr. Birch just said, it's 3 teachers, but then we're adding back in the world language teacher. So it's a net reduction of 2 regular ed teachers. So you see the negative.
Okay, so the reduction is actually in the regular ed teachers and not the special ed teachers, and that's where it shows up.
Correct.
Okay.
If you look at
I
it,
see it.
you see that?
Yeah, I do see it. Okay, so the two positions, 120,000.
That's
Okay, all right, I see that.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Okay, what was I at?
Well, I do see that there, but that's under the regular ed, it went from 462.3 positions to 460.3 positions.
Correct.
But there's, again, similarly, we just had the hash mark under the special ed. So
Right.
maybe I'm not following it.
you know, and that can be explained again, back on Roman numeral 15.
Okay.
You see the reduction of 2 special ed teachers, but one of them has actually been assigned to a school psychologist, so we're shifting from a teacher position to a school psychologist. So, and you see the increase there on that line for an additional 1. And then the other position is the behaviorist that's going out of teacher line and over to the
Okay, yeah, over into non-certified assistants.
correct.
Okay. Again, I follow that, but I just don't understand, because we see those increases when we add the position over to non-certified assistants, and we see it when we add it to psychologists,
Yeah.
but we don't see it, we don't see, when we eliminated the 2 positions from special ed, we don't see any corresponding, just similar to what we see under regular ed. We eliminated 2 positions, or transferred, might be a better word, or reallocated, and we show a $120,000 reduction. I would expect to see
Well,
in that a similar one.
But you do actually, because if you look at, okay, on special education teachers, if you look at the 17-18 budget, there were 69.5.
Correct.
And this year's budget, there's 67.5.
Right, I see
So
that.
it's a reduction of 2.
Yes. But I see the reduction for the positions, but I don't see the reduction for the salary allocated to those positions.
You won't, because they're going to other areas. They're going to, then if you look at the psychologist line, that's where you see an increase of 1.
Right. And I see the increase of, well, is there an increase? So we're increasing, well, that's it. For instance, in the high school psychologist, you have 2 for last year, this current year. And you have 3, and we see a roughly $80,000 increase in that line item because of the, presumably because of that new position.
That's right.
And then similarly on non-certified,
Yep.
we see the behaviorist 2 positions added and a new $150,000 allocation for those positions, which makes sense, but I just, again, I don't see why we don't have the reduction, corresponding reduction in the proposed salary because of the
Okay, so, yep, it's, so 1 goes to the psychologist.
Yeah.
There's a reduction of 2 in special ed teachers. 1 goes to the psychologist.
Yes.
The other one goes to the non-certified supervisors. And the other one comes out of contracted services, which is
Well, okay. Well,
it's
maybe it's
coming out of
because,
account 3306 because we couldn't hire a teacher, so we transferred the money from the teacher salary account to contracted services, and we were subcontracting that position out. And so that's where that additional dollars are coming from, is the 3306, which is contracted services. It's difficult to,
Where did the other one go to? You said 1 went down to non-certified supervisors?
non-certified, yes. And the other one goes to the school psychologist.
all right, I think I'm following now because,
Non-certified, it stays at 6.
On which page?
Well, it's not non-certified.
15 Roman numeral.
I think that answers my question, because you,
It's not non-certified assistants, not non-certified supervisors.
So it's non-certified assistants.
Yes.
So that went up by 2.
that went up by 2. But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you've got the reductions TBD to be determined. Last year they were to be determined, and similarly for teachers regular ed, they're still to be determined for this year. But it looks like your actual reductions have been determined, so you took them out from that specific line.
Exactly.
Okay.
There's 2 less special ed teachers in that line. The dollars are in other areas in the budget.
Right, but you, for instance, you're seeing Harborside had 7 FTE positions and now it has 4. So you've already made the reduction on that specific line item. So it's not to be determined, it's been made.
Correct.
Okay.
And one thing just to keep in mind, that the FTEs that are attached, when you look at the FTE per school, those are our predictions as of now, but enrollment's going to change, so the number of actual teachers that we need in a particular school may change next year, but the total number of teachers won't change.
So Jim, on this sheet, it says you went down 3 teachers, but you really didn't.
We reduced 3, but then we added on that sheet
Right.
an additional 1.
Okay.
So it's a net of 2, correct. 1 on the sheet, we're reducing 3 regular ed, but then 1 of those regular ed teachers will become a world language teacher, so it's being.
Right, and then 2 are non-certified assistants, you added 2 there.
There's 2
Well, those are
different things.
special ed.
There's 2 different things.
Those are special ed. There were the 3 that we showed, they're regular ed positions, so just keep them separate.
Right, I know, but I'm just looking at, you know, I mean, down at the bottom here, it just tells me you're losing half a position here. Net,
On
you know,
15.
on 15, you're losing half a position.
Well,
Staff.
you have to keep the certified and the non-certified staff separated.
Mhm.
Yeah, when you look at the budget and the money you're spending, you just have a, you know, if I'm looking at a total, you know, total tells me that I'm just going down a half a position, right?
Total, yes.
Total.
Total overall count,
Yeah,
yes.
I'm going down a half a position.
Yes,
Okay,
correct.
all right, so this sheet here is a little misleading to me. Okay.
My own
Yeah.
thing is as though that you're combining apples and oranges, so you're combining a .5 custodian with a classroom teacher. That's what you're doing, and I mean, you can look at it that way, but the way we have to look at it is in terms of, okay, regular ed teachers, special ed teachers, custodians, and that's how we're looking at, so we don't merge them all and say, okay, and so the total staffing, because they're all coming out of different accounts.
Right. Okay.
Correct, but I'm just looking in total, okay.
Okay, well, I'm going to,
Hold on for a second. On the teachers, in your projection for the number of teachers, are you projecting any type of retirements at all?
We always anticipate the average number of retirements.
In those
which
figures?
is 18 per year, correct. Some years we've been as high as 28,
Right.
and some years we've been as low as 10. But the average always comes in around 18, and we're projecting that it'll be around that this year.
So when we're seeing the staffing here, we're talking about new teachers in those figures then?
Well,
Or
if you
not.
can look at it, if you can look at it, there will be a total of 3 less regular ed teachers. 1 will move up, so a total of 2 less regular ed teachers, a net, in next year's budget. 18 teachers will retire, we anticipate. So we will have to, 2 of the reductions will be absorbed by the retirements, and then we will have to hire teachers.
Right.
Because we'll need another, if everything stays the same, we'll need an additional 16 teachers.
Right, but right now, you're staffing at the full salary that these people are at right now.
Correct.
Right.
Existing staff right now.
You're assuming all of these teachers that you're projecting for 18-19 are the full-time people you currently have.
Correct.
So if we have 18 teachers,
Adjusted for what we anticipate that the savings will be from the 8 retirements. Because most of the time, a teacher that retires will be at a higher rate than
Right.
a teacher that comes in. So we adjust for that, and it comes in around 60,000 per teacher.
where do we see that in here though? We don't see that. You know what I'm saying? I'm lost every year on this.
Not to interject, but the,
Yeah.
you know, the last year's budget also anticipated 18 teachers. So if next year you're anticipating 40 teachers that are going to retire, then you would account for it. But if there's the same amount of anticipated retirements year after year, it should be the same amount baked into the budget. Accounting for in terms of the different steps.
Mm-hmm.
Because it changes, if they're rolling up, and people are moving up every year anyway. Right?
Correct, yes.
Number of that, too.
No, not the,
Yes, you have in your salary account, you've got your step increases, you've got your union, contractual wage increase, and then, so the figure is a total figure.
No, it's almost perpetual. You got your top people retiring, and then everybody's moving up the chain, essentially.
you know what, again, you've got 18 teachers that are gonna be leaving. You have 460, what is the total?
18 persons will be leaving, but there still will be 16 positions still in the budget to be filled.
The positions will be in the budget at what figure though?
We can't put a figure on it because we don't know
Well, you have a
exactly
figure.
what teacher, we don't know exactly what the teacher's gonna come in at, so we can't
Right.
put an exact number. We put a number that we believe, and that's around $60,000 for a new teacher that's coming in.
I'm not clear with this.
And because you don't really know what teachers will retire, you don't know what
Right.
they're retiring at.
Right.
So it is difficult to put a,
Okay, totals, where's your total salaries, total teachers? Where's your total teachers?
Teachers are on 15, Roman numeral
No,
15
the other one.
positions.
Oh, yeah, okay.
If you're looking at dollars, it's on 9.
Page 9?
Now, Roman numeral 9, you see dollars for all
Okay,
those
I
categories.
have to get this every year. Okay.
That's for dollars.
A14 in the appendix is the salary accounts for teachers.
Right, okay, now on page 9, we have a total of,
Roman numeral 9?
Roman numeral 9, right. We have a total of projecting $52,696,000 under the certified salaries, right? Say 10 of those retirements are out of this area, you're projecting.
No, I'm not getting there. If you're saying that 10 teachers retire,
Right.
they would be in this category. So teachers are in the certified salaries.
Right.
account.
Now, the 10 teachers that are retiring, are they reflected in here?
We take a factor for how much we believe will be reduced by the 18 retirements. Yes, but when we go through, we look at the salaries for every single teacher that's in our district
Right.
right now,
Right.
and where they will be on the salary scale next year.
Right.
We do that for all of our employees.
Right.
Secretaries.
That's what I figured you would.
Person by person, and then we account, we adjust for a certain amount of retirements, which we believe is around 18 retirements.
Mhm.
That's,
so if I may, if we didn't make that adjustment, that 52,000 would be higher.
Much higher.
But you still may be higher.
It would be
Is
higher.
that what you're saying?
correct. It would be much higher,
So you're anticipating the new hirees in this figure,
correct. We've adjusted for
The
that.
reduced salary.
the new salary, right? Okay, it's in that.
And if there
How do you do that?
If there were retirements that are already
Yes.
announced before this.
It
was
is
put
a
together,
guess.
That would be accounted for.
Would you put 60,000 in for that person?
No,
Okay, we have to do an estimate.
no, we would put in
We
the
do it
amount
this-
of the new teacher that's been hired.
Oh, no, if they haven't
Oh, if they have,
hired.
if they have.
Okay, that's it.
That answers it for you?
Yeah, I got
Approximately.
Okay, so I'm gonna do what I like to do, which is turn pages. We've covered, I think, Roman numerals 8 and 9. We're gonna go through Roman numerals, pages 10 and 11. And these will be covered, these are summaries, so we can actually, we may cover these twice. I think we'll go through the actual. So why don't we do that, actually? Why don't we turn it to the 1,000 series on page 1. And I do have one, before we do that, I have one question on enrollment. It looks like we're projecting approximately 60 less students this year, and that decline is actually less than it's been.
Correct.
Everyone's been about 100 students every year?
Yep.
Or more. Less. So are we projecting that lower level of decline to continue? Are we, in other words, are we leveling out?
When we did our long-range planning work a number of years ago, there was the anticipation that the decline would level off. And it would lessen at the elementary level first. As the kids went into the system, you would see there would still be some decline at the middle and high school levels, and eventually it would all level off. So we are anticipating that. It's hard to say for sure, but the anticipation is that the decline will lessen at this point.
Are we seeing any increase in enrollment at the younger levels?
Kindergarten didn't go yet.
Nothing?
I mean, kindergarten registration will begin in March, so, but we didn't see it in the last 2 years. We did not see increases. We saw decreases.
Good stuff. Okay. Thank you. All right. If there's no further general questions, I'm going to move into salaries, page 1. And I'll move along, but of course, if anybody has a question or a comment, either from the board or from the Board of Education, please feel free to interject. Administrators, 1110.
Are those principals and assistant principals?
And supervisors, yes.
And
All administrative staff.
And there's basically no increase or change in staffing in that department.
Correct.
Page 2, we've covered this fairly substantially over the last few minutes, but if there's anything further, same with page 3, guidance counselors, social workers, etc. Page 4, 112 to 119.
Homebound, is that for people who are sick or
Yes.
Multiple purposes, right, Cheryl?
Yes.
behavior disciplinary problems, suspensions?
It can be for disciplinary issues, expulsions, it can be for very medically fragile kids who need to be taught at home.
Children that are school phobic
Mhm.
would be, which we have children that just are, for lots of reasons, really fearful to come into school. And then, kids who are sick, a student who had surgery or something, et cetera.
Do we add anything new to coaches, or is that simply an salary increase?
I can just give a general overview, and then if you want details, Mr. Burt, certainly. In the last contract negotiations with the teachers, the question of stipends for coaches and advisors was a major piece, and so the agreement was that a committee of administration and the union would get together and go over the whole list of advisors and stipends and adjust it accordingly. I don't know, Jeff, do you want to?
So,
But there's also
That's the
stipend
result.
coaches and advisors, that line also does, the contractual wage increase applies to that.
Correct, it does, yes. So it's partly the effect of the union agreement, the contract and the agreement, plus.
so basically, you evaluated what the stipends were and tried to come up with something that was more appropriate.
Yes.
Stipend.
Yes.
some of which were reduced, right?
Some were reduced, some were increased, and some were clearly identified in the contract that had been added, but were added to the contract, so we made sure everything that aligns now between payroll and budget and the contract, so it's all aligned now.
And then the stipend for athletic directors went where? I'm not sure if I follow that. Did that get taken out of the coaches and advisors and put into a different line somewhere? The AD stipend?
Not that I'm aware
That's
of.
part of that, paid within that amount.
Coaches out of, oh, so they were taken out of, well, I'm just looking at A15, appendix A15, the asterisk stipend for athletic directors with budgeted out of 111.
Correct, that's correct. They correctly should be accounted for under teacher salaries. So the stipend is listed here because that's what the contract says,
Okay.
but it's funded out of the teacher salary, because that's where we are, we're certified teachers.
Okay, so this 23,272, it shows up in the 754,100 that is your stipend for coaches and advisors, does it? Well, now, so it's listed here, but then you're deducting it and then adding it to the salary
Teacher
portion.
line.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any further? Secretarial, page 5, 1121. Page 6, 1122, maintenance and custodian. Page 7,
I'm on 7.
Mr. Fitzpatrick.
On overtime salaries, what is that again? 1127?
Any overtime that covers, the vast majority of it is the custodial and maintenance for things like weather, summer work, but that's generally, but any salary that requires overtime that's not certified staff would come out of this line.
You anticipate spending the 400,000 this year?
We do.
Good. Is there any way of controlling that?
We do. We do control it. Any overtime that, any overtime that's not what we would call contractual. In other words, if somebody's out, we have to call somebody back in. But anything over and above that has to be approved, and we watch it very closely. Mr. Bradbury and his supervisors watch it very closely. We've looked at the secretarial overtime, the paraprofessionals overtime, and we're making sure that we keep a very close eye on it.
An example this year, for example, I mean, there's always things that you don't anticipate, so we didn't open West Shore on time, as you well know. So, but when it was ready to be opened, I mean, Pat Bradbury's men were in the weekend before, the 2 weekends before, I mean, unloading those trucks, getting the furniture, supplies, everything into those classrooms. So that was all overtime to enable that to happen.
Okay. So that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Page 8, hourly aid, media aids, secretary aids. Now, last year we added media aids, isn't that correct? Did we add media aids last year?
Now, I believe that was the year that we reconfigured.
So that was
3 years.
3 years ago. Okay. Moving on, benefits. Page 11.
Education reimbursement increased 35,000, 25,000?
Yes, and that's, we can't predict except by going by prior years as to what's going to be paid out. In the contracts for teachers and administrators, they are allowed a tuition reimbursement. And you can see the past averages. So we basically we went by the 16-17 year and anticipate that we'll be spending about $80,000 this year.
Now, with this new curriculum business, are we gonna end up with more education reimbursement from that area?
I don't see a direct tie between those two.
No, not at all.
A lot of it is, for example, if teachers come in with a bachelor's degree, they have so many years in which to get a master's degree, that's mandated. And then oftentimes teachers beyond a master's will go for what's called a 6th year. And they get it in administration or whatever it may be, so they can get reimbursed partially for that as well.
That's all under contract.
It's all in the contract.
Okay, if nothing further, we'll go to contracted services, page 13, 3000 series.
Security services, that was software? Is that software upgrade?
Correct. The SRO and the upgrade in the,
Okay. The police did not put the money in for an SRO.
I do not believe that they did.
Okay.
For an additional SRO position. But
Do you ever ask them, Jim?
we did.
Okay, you did ask them.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to see if there was communication there. Okay.
Under contracted services, do we have an appendix for that one, the 828?
Page 14.
A14, 15?
There's a descriptive.
The description, it's not.
Oh, pages 14.
Yeah, that's-
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
We don't have a breakdown of all of that, huh? Didn't we used to have a breakdown on our budget books for
We
these
can
funds?
give you a breakdown of that.
While I'm under that area, that was a question for me. Purchasing agent for the, okay. Who is under control of these? In other words, the contracted services, do you put out for bid? Is it over 5,000 used to be?
Professional services usually is not put out to bid, but
No?
for cap, a lot of times people, there'll be an RFQ or an RFP, a request for proposals that gets put out. But for anything that's a hard, fast line, then you need to put out for bid.
Okay, who's in charge of this? Is our purchasing agent in charge of this, or is it the Board of Ed have their own?
We'd be our own.
You do your own?
Correct.
They do, yeah, they do. Their own.
Okay,
We can give you a breakdown of
Yeah.
what's included in 3306.
that's quite an increase in that area.
Well, that's the asset management.
Oh, the
That's
77,000.
the vast majority of it.
Okay. Now, most of these services just automatically renewed every year, or do we have new contracts every year, or how does that work?
Most of them under maintenance. We have some contracts and some that we renew annually.
Correct. Some of mine are renewed, some of mine are redone. We'll go over them again, we'll change product. Some are like my elevator contracts, which is in the contracted maintenance. I think I'm off the count now, but that, they have their increases with their union rates. I get an increase on those with the Kone piece of that. But most of them we're redoing them, or we're going over them on an annual basis or biannual, every 2 years we'll go over.
But no bidding on any of these, really?
They, so a lot of my contracted is sole source, but we do bid it out when we can, yes.
I'm sorry?
We do bid it out when I can. Some of it's sole source, like my Johnson.
Oh, yeah, right, I understand
Yeah.
that, but
Yeah.
other services?
Yes.
Do we have outside plowing?
I have outside contractors that will help me if we get a deep amount and I need payloaders, I usually just use the outside services for payloader work if I have to, move it off the property.
Okay.
Nothing further?
Thank you.
Move to page 16, 4100 accounts, electricity, energy,
Love it.
17, 18, further heat, fuel, water, and contracted maintenance. Page 18.
On page 17, energy conservation, Jim, is there a project you're working on there?
There's, yes, we have a contract. Actually, Phillipson, every dollar that we put into the energy conservation program is tied to an incentive program from the utilities. So we leverage the dollars that the board and the city give us and increase it quite dramatically.
I'm in the process of one right now with UI, doing a lighting upgrade at the middle schools and high schools, converting some of my fluorescents to LED right now. We just finished the one that was control work with UI. Same thing.
Major portion going forward, besides our solar program, which we'll have solar on every roof, but that's not included in this conservation line, will be LED lighting. Because that's kind of the low-hanging fruit at this point. But other things, we talked about steam traps or...
Yeah, we're talking some heating control, we're working with the gas company on some conversions, or a lot of control work we'll do. We'll work with Johnson Controls and UI to hopefully change some controls processes that we're doing with some of the units, some of the bigger areas.
Truly, every dollar that's spent out of that energy conservation line is leveraged for more money, and then the return on investment is within a really short period of time on all the things that we go for.
Okay, so you think you'll spend 50,000?
No.
Okay.
Where are we at now?
I'm on page 17 or 18.
18. On the contracted maintenance versus contracted services, why are they differentiated? They seem to be the same.
I might have misspoke with, I combined the two before. The contracted services are more for the engineering fees with an architect or engineer that we get in. We also had moving services in there, I believe. And that's where we put the capital forecasting in the contracted services. The contracted maintenance is where I get into my service contracts for elevators, dock levelers.
Oh, okay.
That's where that comes into that account.
What's human resources?
Let's see, for contracted maintenance?
Yeah,
Let's see, what page are you on? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, that's 18.
Oh, the $9,000, that's for the automated sub-finder software that we use. There's, when teachers are going to have an absence, they will call into the sub-finder. And then it automatically, in some cases, in most cases, assigns a substitute to that particular school. And that's the annual fee for the ASOP program.
Okay. Okay.
Pages 19 and 20. 4300 series. We addressed 4304 earlier with the initial presentation, which is the increase. Good?
No, and it's just under the gasoline maintenance. We're going from, I noticed it go 49 to 29 to 50 under 4306 on page 20.
That's the gasoline that we purchased from the city for all of our maintenance vehicles. Yep, and the city goes out for, to bid, and it's locked in price, and the price went up slightly this year.
So 2015-16, we really had a good year, is that what we're saying?
Yes. Excellent.
Are we missing a year here? Looks like we missed 2017.
Oh.
Yeah, we're,
You must be up again. I
Really?
can't.
Sorry. Yeah, it starts on 4303, I think.
Yeah.
good catch.
Just getting you ready for the Board of Aldermen, they're a lot tougher than we are.
That's a typo on each of the,
It should be 17, 18.
Yes.
Yeah. Good catch. Oh, God, we pay you well.
All right, so we'll move on to 5,000 series. Transportation, 5,100.
On the athletic teams, well, I'm thinking mainly the hockey. What does Platt Tech pay us, anything?
$600 per player.
For the transportation?
Well, that's just
That's
their
comes in.
overall that they're taking into the program.
Okay.
Yes,
They don't have many players. do they?
5 or 6 last year.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Jim, what's non-public transportation?
Non-public is for the parochial schools, specifically St. Mary's, Walter Hall, Milford Christian Academy, and from time to time, there may be somebody that is going to a school outside of Milford that we're required to pay for, but generally that's what it is. It's Laurelton, St. Mary's, Milford Christian Academy.
Now, is it the same bus company or same transportation company for all these items, except probably for the vans?
It's Durham. Our
It's
contract
Durham.
is with Durham.
So this is just a renegotiation of a contract or the escalation of a contract?
Correct.
So is it escalation or do we do a new contract every year?
The board approved a 5-year extension to the contract, which calls for 3% increase per year. I will point out, though, when the board made that decision, it was based upon a statewide survey of other districts and what they're paying, and our prices are extremely competitive. In addition, Durham pays the first dollar of gasoline. So when prices fell, that's why you'll see the reflection in here of dramatic decreases in gasoline. That would be on page, on page 23. You can see the
See 15, 16, 16, 17.
correct.
Right.
Where was I going with that?
You're saying about the dollar.
That's right.
Right. They pay the first dollar, which most contracts, the district pays straight out.
So you had,
Yeah. So it is an extension. We're in the second year of a 5-year extension. And again, the prices are very good. There's a survey that's done every year, and our prices continue to be very competitive. Statewide.
good, I know you guys work hard on that. Page 24 and 25, 52 through 5600 series.
What's that telecommunications? Is that the IT system?
That's anything to do with our telephone system, really.
Just a telephone system?
And I'm sorry, that would also be our internet service.
With your cell phone building?
Cell phones would be in the, correct.
are the days we used to spend a lot of time talking about cell phones.
What are they?
Who has them, how much do they
Oh,
cost?
God, there was a,
Anymore.
okay, I'm on page 25.
Page 25.
Okay, the magnet school, Bridgeport Magnet School, this is a new item. Right?
Last year it was new.
Huh?
Last year it was new.
Oh, that's right, yeah. How many do we have going now?
Wasn't getting that.
Is that under,
Page 28.
of course it would be.
50 students.
50, okay. What do they offer that we don't offer? I'm never gonna forget.
But this is for the, it's two schools. It's for the Fairchild Wheeler High School, and that's, it's very, there's 3 different schools within the high school, all very, very high-tech. One is science, biological sciences. Another is, I think, the whole computer science piece. Do you remember what the third piece is? But anyways, it's that, although we don't have a lot of kids go there, but we pay tuition. And then the other is the Discovery Magnet, which is actually for, I think it's a K-8. And we've been involved with that for years, but we didn't have to pay. Either one of them, we didn't have to pay.
Oh, that's right.
Until this past year.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Do we have the reverse of kids coming to our schools?
Well, we did, they pay tuition.
Right, do we
So
have any?
it's rare.
Illegally.
I think it says about 40.
Oh, when you were talking about Project Choice, I'm sorry, I thought you were
Yeah.
talking about, we have about, yes, it's about 40 students come in.
Yeah, $3,000.
Right. The state
Three?
pays us $3,000 for each child that comes
The
in.
state pays us,
Correct.
but we pay those schools. There's something wrong with that picture.
Well, we pay Bridgeport, we do not pay New Haven.
Oh, well,
And we have about 100 students in New Haven magnet schools.
oh. Okay. How else is there?
All right, moving to the 6,000 series, educational supplies, page 229. 6,100.
6110, that last item, all schools.
Yeah, page 29, 61 schools.
This would be, the 6,000 accounts, and some of the 7,000 accounts.
Right.
This is the area where the principals have some discretion. We apply a per pupil expenditure to each of the schools, and then the principals have some discretion, and then they pass some of it down to the teachers to buy supplies for their classrooms. So that's where these items come out of. That instructional supplies line that's labeled all schools is, I believe it would be the instructional supervisors.
Correct.
Jeff, do you know?
Mostly this has to do with the new science curriculum adoption. We have essentially tubs that have experiments in them that go to each of the grades in elementary. So, and those are rotated through, and there's supplies that are consumable, and then they go back to a central location, they get refurbished and go back out. This is to retool those kits, if you will, those science kits, to make sure they're aligned with the new standards. You also notice that we have a significant reduction in textbook adoptions, and we're moving, because the science standards and the social studies standards are less textbook oriented, we are moving more into the instructional supplies areas. So you'll see a significant reduction in textbook adoptions, and this you'll see a shift here, and in some cases we'll be shifting to more Chromebooks because it's more adaptable and gives students more options to do research.
Is this under robotics?
Part of supplies, yeah.
Right.
Last year, we did purchase robotics for the 3 middle schools because those were 12 years old.
Right, and we just purchased for both high schools,
Correct.
upgraded their robotics because theirs were dying,
Correct.
so we were able to purchase.
How much are they running for? You know what that?
I believe the class set for the middle school is approximately $8,000 per school. They're highly sophisticated.
I know.
They're easy to use. That's the nice thing.
Page 30, 31.
30. Well, we got more kids graduating from law this year? $3,000 more?
No, it's based upon what, we based it on what the schools spent in 16, 17. And there's just different needs at both high schools for their graduation ceremonies.
And that could mean that there's different numbers of police that are required, different numbers of staff.
Oh, that's right.
I mean, there's some things that's what a lot of that money is going out for.
They
See
only
the
behave.
textbooks went down, Joe, before you
Yeah,
see that?
they don't study anymore. You don't need to give them a book.
All right.
Give them a thing.
Page 32, 33, library books, periodicals, AV materials.
Who's that testing money go to? Or is this all the materials?
It's for internal testing that we do.
Part of this covers the tests that we required that we give to our students for benchmarking. Another part of this covers the AP exams, a portion of the advanced placement exams for high school students. So they pay, I believe, the first $25 for the first 2 exams, and then we cover the remainder. It's approximately $96 this year, I believe, for each AP exam. So I don't know if you've been aware, but we've increased significantly the number of students that take an AP exam and the number of them that scored at the passing level, if you will, 3. And so part of that is that we encourage students to take those courses. We want to encourage them to take the exam at the end of the year because they go 8 months worth of instruction. We want to see how they do on the exam.
Page 34, computer software, library supplies.
The software, is that the asset software? No?
No, that's in contracted services.
Okay. So the old school software, is that licenses or new software?
It increases every time we purchase new technology. Typically, there's a yearly maintenance that go along with that. For example, a smart board, you have to pay for the software that runs the smart board.
The yearly updates.
Yep, and it's an annual fee for each one of those. So as we add computers and new equipment in, but also part of this is our contracts with our current software providers. For example, Microsoft. There's generally an increase every year for all those licenses that we pay for.
And in addition, if you'll notice at the top, we removed the software licensing fees from the elementary schools.
Right.
And moved into that all schools line.
Okay.
Oh, all right.
Thank you. Equipment, page 38, 7,000 series. Computer line has actually gone down, is it because cost has gone down, which require, or are we just using fewer? Page 38.
Predominantly, if you look back over the years, we've been very well funded, both through local funds, through the city, as well as through grants. So we've hit a good point this year in particular that we can reduce those costs. Much of those lines, correct if I'm wrong, Jim, that's for our lease agreement for many of our computers.
Yep.
So that's an annual lease.
Okay, moving right along, page 40, 8,000 series. 40 and 41, 8,100 through 8,200, student activities and athletics.
Now, what are we talking about, student athletics? Is this for uniforms? What is this all area?
It's all sports. We have 24 CIAC sanctioned sports, and this would pay for anything from Band-Aids that the trainer would use, up to equipment, balls, nets, anything that we would need for the
Do we pay
athletic
for their
program.
uniforms and stuff?
We do,
We do, yeah, okay.
yes.
Okay, move into
Go.
grants, G1 through G3. We just spent a lot of time on this.
I don't know what I'm looking at.
Not a lot of money.
Looking at a lot of money.
Title I schools are for, Title I is for schools with a percentage of free and reduced lunch students. And it's primarily, there's a lot of professional development out of Title I. Title II, you can see, is professional development. I don't know what Title III is, Jeff.
ESL, English. If you look at page G2, it has an explanation for all the grants. So this is for English language learners. Help support those programs as students come in without, obviously not speaking English, transition them into more.
Where do you do that?
Excuse me?
In the classroom, or where is this stuff?
We have a number of staff across the district, and we allocate them based on need as students come in. And there's two ways we can do it. You can do some push in into the classroom, or do some pull out, especially if they have no English language whatsoever. Typically, for the first few weeks, they're pulled out into a small classroom with other students. I've observed a few of these, 3 or 4 students working very intensely with a teacher. And it's amazing, especially in the young grades, how quickly students pick up English.
The younger ones.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to learn French now.
I'm talking
Not quite working.
All right, so the appendix A through 12 is basically explanatory information provided by the board. If there's any questions on page A13, we've covered some of this already. A13, A14, A15. Basically, information on salaries. Any questions on those? Appendix E.
I just had a quick question going back, and I don't mean to belabor this, but on G1, the grant, that approximate, all the grants listed on G1 are not part of the 93.5 proposal.
Correct.
They're separate and distinct, but do the benefits for any of those grant-funded positions go back to the benefits listed under either the city budget or the Board of Ed budget?
They do. If they are employed by the district, they would be on the city's health insurance plan.
And the other benefits that are in the Board of Ed side too, like workers' comp.
I'm sorry, the workers' comp. The workers' comp is separate. We don't. Board of
I
Ed-
said Board of Ed side or the city side.
I'm not sure of the question on that.
Okay.
Oh, for the grants, yes, we would pay for workers' compensation also. If we're somebody who is employed and paid for by the grant, yes.
What is the proportional amount, maybe not all the grants, but is the proportional amount of benefits sometimes incorporated into the grants?
I'd have to check on that.
Any questions on Appendix E? Page A18, A19, Appendixes F and G. Page A20, A21. That was more informational, but Appendix H and I, we touched upon this earlier as far as the projects. J and K. Just supplemental information. Who gets to use the golf cart?
At the high school?
Yeah.
I have two at the high school, so you have
Is it going down to the fields?
Oh,
just to
yeah.
keep.
All right, I think we covered just about anything. Does any members of the board have any further comments or questions?
Two questions, one for Jim. When you have account transfers, you do follow the chart of accounts and you transfer between accounts?
We do. We can transfer within an object. Anything else has to be approved by the board.
Board of Education, the board has to approve.
Correct.
Is there any amount they have to approve, or is it any transfers? And so when you do that
Any
once a month? like
And
we
you
do?
transfer between accounts.
Huh?
So something going from like the 1,000 series to the 3,000
Right.
series, you have to come to us to do a transfer.
Right.
We only do it when necessary.
Right, exactly.
But in the 1,000 series, you can just move around between line items.
Correct.
Do you anticipate any overage this year? Non-expended?
Any overage?
Any non-expended?
At this time, we're projecting that we'll have a surplus.
Mm-hmm.
That's at the last quarterly report that I gave to the board, we projected that we would have a surplus for the end of the year.
Do you have any idea approximating?
No, not off the top of my head.
Right. Because we use that surplus to apply to this year's budget, like we do with the city budget. We could take the $5 million.
There was a reimbursement, albeit a modest one, but there was a reimbursement last year to the city's general fund
Yeah.
from the Board of Ed.
Yeah.
You know, we cannot carry your money over.
Right. You can carry a one account.
We have to do a non-lapsing account, that's something special process.
Right.
We have to apply to you to do,
Mm-hmm. Right.
but we have not used that in several years.
And my last question is, are you doing any studies about closing schools? Is there any studies going on about closing schools?
Not at this time, no.
No?
No. No, we had a long-range planning work that we did several years ago.
Several
and
years ago.
You know, there was a process, we did look at closing some schools, and in the end, we didn't close any schools.
Right. I don't have my book with me. 5-year plan, the school had some for public and delight, isn't that in there? It's about 12 million?
I think it was 7.
7?
Yeah, well.
Maybe there's 2 phases.
In the 5-year capital improvement plan, yes, there's money in there for Pumpkin Delight, and it's over 2 years, and it's 7 million per year.
So it's 14 million?
Correct. But that's in the 5-year capital improvement plan.
Yeah, I know. Close the school and then we'll build another one.
Well, certainly we would build another one.
Yeah, you
students?
We've been,
Oh, yeah.
Maybe I think Simon Lake.
Something like that.
All right.
Now, each school that's open, they're at full capacity? Nowhere.
Because of the declining enrollment.
Right. That's what I'm saying, is any study being done of whether you could merge 2 schools? Do you have enough availability of space to merge 2 schools or merge 3 schools? I think this is something that we should be, fiscally responsible, rather than keeping a school open that's not at full capacity. It's like any business. You close a site down and merge them together. I've always had a problem with that. I'd be interested if you ever going to do that. Okay. I'm all done.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzpatrick.
Well, does the long-range plan doesn't call for closing any schools?
The long-range plan made recommendations,
Yeah.
but the board, in the end, the board did not close any schools, going back.
Any recommendations have a school closing?
It recommended some reconfigurations. Yes, it did have a recommendation to close the school.
Okay.
That was middle school.
Well, that was in the end what the board chose to do, which didn't end up happening. So
Okay, so it recommended closing Harborside.
that's what the board had recommended.
That's what the board, and that was the only school that was recommended to be.
Yes, that was the only school the board recommended closing of.
Okay. And when did it recommend closing that school? Did it say what year?
That would have happened 2018-19, I believe that would have happened.
Thanks.
Well, thank you all for coming out.
Thank you very much.
Lovely
Very much.
evening. We
If you have any
appreciate,
further questions, you know where to find us.
we appreciate your time.
Where are you?
For your presentation. Thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you. You going?
And at this point, before everyone moves out here, make a motion to recess until.
Oh, yeah, right. Be careful. What I did is, read 60 days in one day. And I
So moved.
I second. That's all right.
Done?
You had a vote now to close this off.
Recess.
Recess.
Recess to Monday.
Just like every school.
I need your Harborside to close it, all right?
So Monday I'll come home to a crying wife on her 21st birthday. So,
I know you like hockey, so I hope you're happy that we're going to give the girls.
first year.
Well, let's see.